to Impact 2024, our continuing conversation where we talk about everything you can think of, current events, race, religion, everything that could be going on. And for those of you who have been here before, you know that this is our continuing conversation where we ask that you participate in this conversation by typing your questions and your comments into the comment section. Whether you're on Facebook, YouTube, or even on the website, feel free to type in your opinions, your comments, your questions, so that you can be a part of this conversation. It's not a one-way street, it's a two-way street, or a multiple-way street, or however you want to call it. Just make sure that if you have something to say, let it be said. And we will respond to those comments, put it up on the screen, and we'll talk about it. And that is what we will do. All right. We had a little glitch there. We are rolling. All right. Before we get started, I just wanted to point out a quick story as we look through, our daily, daily news. It's not like back in the day with the newspaper. But wherever you get your news from and your information from, there's a bunch of topics that are always out here. Of course, it's election time. You constantly see stuff about the war that's going on in Gaza. This is not our topic, but I just want to make sure that people pay attention that there is a major crisis going on in Africa and Sierra Leone. They have a big drug crisis out there. And synthetic drugs is what they're called, where people are making up drugs. So it's not like a mass-produced drug, it's a synthetic drug where people are making it. In Africa, what they're doing is they're having an issue with making drugs out of human remains. They're grinding it up and ingesting it in whatever manner they're doing. I bring this up for two reasons. One, just a reminder to all of us here, we got to be careful in watching with what our friends, family, and young kids do. Or not even young kids, it's kids do. When it comes to the drug situations. People are just trying things for some strange reason. And so just got to be careful. So that's one thing. That's what they're doing down there in Sierra Leone. They're just trying stuff. And so they have a drug, and they call it Kush. And but outside of that, also it's a major drug. We're in a major drug culture right now, and drugs have exploded throughout the world, and even here and there. So I want you to pay attention to what's going on there, because as much as we want to pay attention to what's going on in other parts of the world, we got to remember that in the continent of Africa, and countries in Africa, there are things going on. And for some strange reason, I don't know what it could possibly be, but when things are going on in Africa, we don't hear about it. So just keep in mind and an eye to that. And we may circle back to that topic at a later time. So drug epidemic in Sierra Leone. And then again, make sure we concentrate and focus on the fact that there's a significant drug epidemic here as well. And then we're pivoting. And so now we're pivoting to our topic for today. Our topic for today is not a current event. It's not really a news story. It is what happens oftentimes with myself. It's a conversation. And so I had a conversation not too long ago with some friends. They were talking about young people. This is that time of year. It's May, about to be June. This is that time of year where people are graduating, whether it be high school, college. Those are the only two I'm going to really talk about, because we're not going to middle school graduations and all that kind of stuff. High school, college, other things, the technical schools, programs, such as that. People are graduating and going on to their next stage in life, where they are going to work, hopefully, or do something else. Work, join the military, go to college, go to another level of college, or something like that. So if they're high school, going to college, if they're college, going even more college. Going on into training programs, going into different fields, whatever they may be, internships, jobs, whatever. And what we always do, and I say we, to just be for everybody. What we always do as older people is that we try to impress upon the young people some good advice, some good words of wisdom, something that they can have and take with them. And we want to give that advice, and we want to give that advice, and we want them to receive it as well. And so we were talking, and the firm was relaying back, how difficult it is nowadays for some of these young people to take the advice of older folk. Now, we don't know if it's any different than it's ever been. But we do know that right now, young people look at all the technology that they have. They look at the connections that they have. And they look at how their lives and their standards are so vastly different from the lives and the standards that we grew up with. Because of some of the movements that have gone on, changes in laws. So you have an openness more to different people, to where openness more to different races, different lifestyles. Just things are just a lot different. Many people talk about, programs, movies, songs. It used to be acceptable back in the day, and not acceptable now. So it's just a different ballgame. And so for that reason, along with some other ones, sometimes the young people look at us and like, look at how y'all grew up. Y'all had songs about, beating up people and all this kind of stuff, and that's not acceptable. So the advice you're trying to give me just doesn't apply. And we talked about, so that was the course of the conversation of how difficult it is to give advice to this younger generation, but we also acknowledge that the wise ones are the ones who will hear the advice and then take it. And so that's where we are. But it comes back to you and I. One of the hardest things I think for people to do, the easiest thing for people to do is give advice. One of the hardest things for people to do is take it. And that's all of us. And especially as we get older, because we think, all right, we're the older people now. We're the ones who should be giving advice, and we should do a lot less of receiving and taking advice. And so that's where the conversation ended up kind of going into, is why is it so difficult for us, especially adults, to take advice? Not only take advice, but you hear the advice. And many of us do that thing like, yep, true. Yeah, that sounds about right. And then don't do anything. So you take the advice and then also act on the advice. When people give us advice, whether we think it's right or wrong, or whether we know it's right or wrong, oftentimes we just don't act upon it. We don't receive it, we don't act upon it. And so it's funny. The conversation went like this, basically. First, we started off with young people not taking advice. Then we realized, adults, we don't take advice that well either. And then we sat back and looked at, you got the word, and you got all of this, you got the word. And the word is a big, giant advice book. And we don't take any of the advice. Most of us can see the advice and won't take it. Like they give you a good one. Vengeance is mine, says the Lord. And basically, sitting back telling us, don't try to seek revenge. We don't need to be worried about that. Leave that up to the Lord. But yet so many of us today spend so much time trying to get back at people. Whether we're getting back, like physically trying to get back at them by doing something, or we're just spending time in our brain thinking about how, if I had the ability, I'd get back at them like this. And so the advice of the Bible is like, don't worry about that. You got plenty of other stuff to concentrate and worry about, but yet we're stuck there. But the same thing when we're talking about one another. We give advice to one another. We just don't take it. It's just why. What is that block? And is it arrogance that we can give, but we can't receive? And so we can give the advice, but we can't receive the advice. What are the advice points that people keep trying to impress upon you nowadays? It's the main thing. You got to know technology. You got to know how to deal with computers. You got to know the AI. You got to give the advice. That's the advice we're trying to give them. We're hoping that they receive it. Half of them are like, nah, I want to be a content creator on social media. I want to have a YouTube channel. I want to be I'm going to be an actor or an actress in on those reality television shows. Like that's where a lot of the minds go when we're trying to give advice of, look, you need to be up on this technology. But you expect that out of young people. They want to reject. It's older folk. Why don't we not accept advice of others? How come when our friends sit back and tell us, all right, this person that you're dealing with, I'm not gonna tell you what to do, but maybe you need to look again at that relationship. Maybe you need to look at the dynamics of what you got going on. That job or that person, I think they may be taking advantage of you. I think you need to look at what you're doing here. Or maybe you need to check yourself. I think some of the activities that you are doing, you may be a little bit off base. Or your attitude's a little different. Maybe there's something wrong or something's going on with you in life that you want to talk about. Just the advice that we get on a daily basis, for some reason, we as adults, we don't do it well. And I think it ultimately comes from a lot of us we don't take anything. It's easier to give than it is to receive, even physical. Sometimes. Some people love to receive, they can take it all the time. But a lot of us who think we are, givers, we are the head, we are kind of like, we're the status. We don't want to receive stuff from other people because we look at ourselves as a giver. And so when other people try to give stuff to us, we're like, oh, no, I don't need that. Give that to somebody who really needs it. And which comes into the effect if you can't take physical goods from somebody who may be giving you something, whether you need it or not, will you also take the advice from somebody? If you get into that mode of I'm always the giver and I'm not the receiver, I think that can permeate throughout your whole entire life and existence. And so that's one of the questions, for those who may be out there. Why do you think it's so hard for us as adults to take advice? Why is it so hard for us, some of us, to be able to take suggestions and actually not just take them and listen to them, hear them, more saying. Not just hear them, but actually take them and internalize them and take them with us. And again, I know, the conclusion that we came to is it's arrogance that we all have. All of us have to humble ourselves and take a little step back and be like, look, even though I've gotten to wherever I am in life, I need to be able to open up myself to the advice. Again, we're all sitting here right now, and we all see these kids going off, graduating, doing new things. We all want to sit here and want to give them some words of wisdom and some advice. But it would be ridiculously hypocritical of all of us if we sat here and we give out the advice, but we can't take it. We all were, it's easier for us to take it when we were young. We were 18, 17, 18, 19, 20. We were going out in the world, people were trying to give us advice. We maybe listen to a little bit of what's going on. But now we get a little older, we get in the 30s, 40s, 50s, 60s. Somebody try to give you some advice, and you're like, well, I didn't live this life, I already know what I'm doing. Why do we get stuck in that zone where we can't listen as much? Because if we're not listening to the people who are talking to us and talking the wisdom to us, then how do we know when we're getting good nuggets from not only just people, but how do we know when the Lord something to us? We can't accept advice from other people. How do you know when you're accepting when God is trying to tell you what to do? And God's not giving you advice, He's giving you instructions. But how do we know when we're getting instructions if we're not listening to anybody? How do we know, how do we correct ourselves when we're wrong or in the wrong path if we're not listening to anybody? Like, how do you even know you're in the wrong path if we're not listening to anybody? And so that's what we, that was the discussion of why are we, as people, so bent on not receiving advice, not receiving counsel? Is it because we don't trust anybody to give us the right advice? Is it a trust issue? That was one of the things that we looked at as a trust issue. Of course, I am more arrogance. I think we're all just a little bit arrogant, and we just feel like we know. We know so much. We know when to listen to your advice and when not to listen to your advice. Like, you tell us something we don't even like, we don't even consider what you're saying. Hey man, let me stop you right there. I don't like what you're saying. Or I'm not even gonna entertain that. Sometimes that's right, but sometimes maybe we need to hear what you have to say, digest it, and then decide whether or not we have understanding. But it seems like so many of us nowadays, so many of us, and that goes to our culture. That whole that culture of us being spread apart. Where they're saying we're more separated than we've ever been. Whether it be, you got people who are super conservative with the way that they run their lives, or people who are super wild and open with the way that they run their lives and their views. And we don't listen to each other. We're so polarized. We're so opposite. And I think some of that's because we're not listening to each other. But not only are we not listening to each other's comments of where they are, but we're not listening to the advice of others. We're just so stubborn in our ways, and we think that we're so right, we're so right. It's a weird dynamic. So, it's not a lot. It's not a lot to it. That was our conversation, and that's the question point of what we should all have and be able to kind of look at, like, why do we have the difficulty of being able to accept the advice, and how do we do that? I will say for me, and that was in the conversation for me, when I was having the conversation with my friend about this, I decided that I got to make sure that I'm not putting myself ahead of what the other person's saying, regardless of who the person is. I mean, it could be anybody. It could be somebody that's very intelligent, or it could be somebody that I think is absolutely crazy. Got to listen to what the content of what is going on is being said first, kind of accept it because they may be right. And, they may be able to see something that I can't see. Comment. Why you tell the truth, it falls back on you. Oh, well, when you tell the truth, it falls back on you. Yeah. That's an interesting one. That's one of the things that it goes two ways. And I like that comment. I like it a lot. That goes two ways. One, when we give advice to others and we're telling them the truth, sometimes you can get that blowback back. For example, if somebody's doing something incorrect and you know that it's incorrect, and then you say something to them, a lot of times they're going to lash back out at you. You're telling them the truth. You're telling them what you see. You're telling them maybe something that's negative that they need to change, and then they come back at you because you never told the truth. And that's one scenario. So yeah, even if you're not going to be accepting of other people's advice, other people's help, even other people's criticism, you don't have to come back at them and just try to, get it done. So that's one point of it. But the other point is, when you tell the truth, and it's a similar scenario, when you tell the truth, it still comes back at you. So not even giving advice, just speaking the truth at any point in time. The crazy part about the truth is that the truth will always, the truth will always kind of open you up to criticism. It will always open you up to well, not always, but it will open you up to criticism. It will open you up to danger. It will open you up to just different things. It's easier just to be that kind of person who's just quiet, keeps their mouth shut, doesn't ever say anything. But when you speak the truth, it always opens you up to something that comes back to you. Now, a lot of times you speak the truth and there won't be any problems. But I think that's why they'll say things like speak truth to power, or they say be brave in your moment and stand in the truth. Because oftentimes, in order to speak the truth, it takes courage, because things come back at you. That's when people want to attack you. The truth of the matter is, people don't like the truth. People rather live the lie. And so whenever you speak the truth, whether you're speaking it to somebody because you're trying to help them out, whether you're speaking it because somebody asked you something and you have to stand on the truth, regardless of the situation, you have the truth. The lie, a lot of times, is better than the truth. And it always is a little bit of danger to speak the truth. But yet, that's who we're supposed to be, and I think that's what we have to do, and that's who we are. And so, even though it's scary to speak that truth, and even though when you speak that truth, there could be some repercussions, I think it's what we have to do. Because ultimately, we hope and we believe that the truth will work out for us. Good one. There is a saying that states that youth or young adults often view parents and older adults as uninformed, behind the times, even ignorant. Eventually, they reach an age where they come to understand that the advice that was given was right and makes sense. Now, as we grow older, hopefully we grow wiser and begin to heal. Things in life really don't change. There will be ups, downs, highs, and lows. That's wisdom. That is. And I'll add on to that, but that is the key to it though. When you're young, sometimes you don't listen because you think you know it all. But then when we get older, sometimes we don't want to listen because we think we know it all. I think that's also the weird kind of thing there. We're too old to be listening to the advice of others or the advice of younger folk. And when you're young, you think you know everything. And so that was one of the, that's right there on it. I think this statement is 100% hits it right. That younger people think they, they think they know everything. As soon as they graduate high school, they be like, I got the world figured out. And so they don't listen. But when we get older, we'll sit back and be like, I did this life so long. And then somebody who's our age, our same age, or maybe just a little bit younger will say something to us and we act like, no, I'm old, I don't gotta hear that. That's a good one. Well, the truth ultimately will set you free. Yeah, I think that's it. At the end of the day, we have to tell the truth. And the truth will set us free. It'll put us on that path where we need it. It will set us, free. So that's our job, is to tell the truth. It may be scary at times. You may not want to tell the truth at times just because, it's easier to say nothing, but eventually you need to tell the truth. And you should always just speak it. Speak what it is. Speak that truth. Speak the truth. Because like the comment says, I 100% agree. Truth will ultimately set you free. And that's where it's at. It reminds me of a quick story. So there was this guy, and he was trying to tell all that he has a young daughter, and the guy, his daughter's like, I don't know, 5, 6. Let's say she's like 5 or 6 years old. And there was a guy who was sitting there, and he talking to some other guys who had some older daughters who 20, grown, whatever. And this guy, he just knew he was like, listen, y'all, the rest of y'all don't know what y'all talking about. This is what you got to do when you have a daughter. You have to continuously talk to her while she's young and continuously talk to her as she gets older. So that when she gets 11, 12, 13, and she gets into that moment where she doesn't want to talk to you and that relationship kind of breaks away, it's not the same. You will have built a foundation that's so good, and then you'll continuously talk to your daughter, blah, blah, blah. He was like, and it's the way that you talk to her. Don't just ask her a bunch of questions. You got to tell her, you got to tell her what's going on with you and make the dialogue so good and genuine, blah, 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 blah. And the other guys looked at him and they said back, "You was a fool. Like, do you think that all of a sudden you're the one dude that figured out how to keep a great relationship with your daughter when she turns 11, 12, 13? And then, they were characterizing how when a girl turns into a tween, the relationship becomes different because she doesn't want to talk to you the same way that she used to. You don't have that same, she's not going to come home and be like, hey, Dad, here's everything that happened, blah, 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 blah. It's a little break there. And so the guy, the rest of the guys said, you're a fool. That's not, you can do all the talking that you want. You can have all of this recipe that you think that you have, and it's not going to work out. They're the ones who change as far as guiding how they want to interact. And you just gotta be there and work that way out. The guy didn't believe him, and he still doesn't believe him. And this is not one of those 20 years later. No, he didn't believe him when he says, no, I got to keep it. And basically what the other gentleman basically said was, we'll check back with you when your daughter's 11, 12, 13 to see if you're saying the same thing. Because we've been there, we know exactly what's going on. And so their advice was just make sure that you appreciate the time that you have now, because at some point, when your child turns into that tween, it's going to change. And so that was their advice. And so the guy basically rejected because he thinks that he has the whole world figured out. And if anybody who has daughters, and I don't have a daughter that's a tween, but anybody has daughters who are tweens, they can sit back here and tell you that the way they talked when they were 8 and the way that they talk to you once they hit that tween and further on is totally different. They're not gonna give you the same amount of energy, the same amount of words, whatever. Same relationship. But you appreciate what you had when you were young. But the advice was given, and because this guy was older with a young daughter, he just thought, I know everything, and I got it everything, and I got it all figured out. All the rest of us in the world, even if you have daughters or don't have daughters, even if you've been around twins or don't have twins, you understand, like that dude sounds crazy. But the problem is he's stuck in that whole, I'm an adult, and I got the key, and I know what's going on, and I'm not going to listen. I'm not going to accept the advice. And so that's an example, so that when we think about it, we're like, man, am I acting like that? And that's where I'm coming at. So now that's how I approach it. I'm like, man, am I acting like that? Am I hearing advice and just rejecting it because of my age, because of my arrogance, because of my whatever? Or am I going to take that, think about it, process it, and then act on it? And no point in taking it and processing it and then just being like, yeah, they sure are right. I ain't gonna do nothing. You got to take it, think about it, act on it. And so that's my goal. That's what I'm going to do. So as of now, yes, a bunch of kids graduating will be asking for advice. I'm like, hey, I got, cousins and all that who graduating and doing stuff. I'm gonna give some advice. I'm expect them to listen. Hopefully they listen. Take some of that. But as I go on every single day, and people are talking to me, I'm gonna make sure I take their advice, make sure I listen, and then make sure that if it's good advice, I'm gonna act on it. And so that's my goal in my movement. Because I feel like if we're doing that with one another, then when God is giving us stuff as well, we'll still be open. We'll be more open to listening to the word as well, listening to that advice as well, or those instructions as well. All right. That's it. Thank you for the comments. Really good comments. I really like when we were especially talking about the truth. I appreciate all the comments that came in. Really did. And so as a reminder, always, on Thursdays at 7, same place, Facebook and YouTube. We have Thursday, Bible study, weekly Bible study. Please join us. To Sundays, 10 a.m. Eastern Standard Time, we have service. And on Tuesdays at 7 o'clock, we have prayer. Please pray with us from 7 to 7:45. Any moment in that time, please pray with us. Not the whole time, unless you want to. Pray with us, and if you have a prayer request, you can definitely send it up through the email address and phone number and all of that, which is on the screen. And then, of course, every week at 8 o'clock, right here, same time, same place, we have Impact 2024. All right, and that's it. Before we get out of here, we got one more comment that we're going to hit. Then we're going to wrap it off. The Word of God teaches us to raise up our child in the way that they should go. And when they get old, they will not depart from it. A better word than old is wise. When they get understanding, they will not depart from it. That's a really good one. We probably should, when we speak about this, take the word old out. Because wisdom, there's no age on wisdom, I think. When we get wise, when we get wise, we will not depart from it. And we're not going to be wise in everything at the same time. I think we may be wise in our wise in our relationship, our personal relationships with individuals, and then we may not be wise in our professional, career wise. And we may get wise in our career, but then we're not wise in our spiritual area. Or we may be wise spiritually, but we're not, whatever combination. So I like that. Man, that was really good. Hopefully we're learning as children, and when we get wise in each area of our lives, then we won't depart from it. And we might not get to all those areas at the same time. All right, well, that's our time. Thank you, everybody, for the comments. Thank you for joining us. And please join us again next week. Same time, same place, all that good stuff. This is Impact 2024.